Hey again. I'm ready to jump into close combat. I think we can do the whole thing in one video and not be too long. So I have a setup over here. I got a couple guys here to go with it. I'll give you some shots of them, and we'll look over their record sheets after we go over the basics of close combat, some of the mechanics, and then we'll jump over there. All right, so the first things we need to worry about would be in close combat is the weapon profiles, and I'm going to throw up right here. I'm going to throw up a chart showing the weapon profiles. That you're going to notice that there's a reach, which is different from the other things. It's kind of how long the weapon is. A longer weapon can hit somebody from farther away. It's pretty basic. Damage, of course, how much damage it does. And a parry penalty. Some weapons are more made to parry in a close combat, like a rapier or some kind of specialized sword. Other weapons are really kind of hard to parry with. So that's the parry penalty. The bigger the penalty, the harder the thing is to whip it around to try to block or and actually get a counterattack off of that. So here's that chart. All right, so here's the basic setup. The two figures that I've chosen for this battle are the crew warrior or the crew mercenary in Inquisitor, as he is in the book, and the assassin. This is a death cult assassin, which is actually a fairly decent match as far as going against the crew, who can be kind of mean in combat. The things, let's take a little bit of moment here, and I'll throw up their character sheets. Now, on the character sheets, we'll go with the crew mercenary first. On the back, he'll have his specialized skills, which we'll go over during this combat just to make it make sense for you. But you'll notice that he has, for hand-to-hand, he has his crew long rifle, and he can use that in hand-to-hand, and that is treated as, I believe, a halberd. If I remember right, it is treated as a halberd. So we can look at the other sheet that I showed you with all the close combat weapons, and that is in there. And so that's how his weapon will fight with. And so he has a long attack with that. And then the sister Morgana, the assassin, or based off Severna, the Death Cult assassins out of the book, has a lot of specialized skills. She has her sword, she has her throwing knives and her fighting knives. She has a pistol in her eye, which is kind of funny. And if you can see that, it's there. It's only got it can't be reloaded. But she also has their close combat weapons, which are her knives, and she has the skill. If we look at the back, she has Blade Master, and that gets her basically a reach of 4 with the knives, because she's used to, she can go and dart in and out and make these lightning quick attacks and slash people. So this combat kind of looks, like, oh well, that's gonna be iffy between these two, but really I'm curious to see how it pans out here, because they both bring some things to the party, whereas like the crew mercenary has a furious assault, which he just will run straight in, but he'll get extra attacks, and if he really hits first, he's gonna do a lot of damage. They both have acrobatic, so their characters are very highly agile. They can leap from different, do somersaults and leap from higher places to not take any damage when they land. They can actually just jump over their opponent in close combat to gain at distance to trying to circle somebody. I'll throw up the graphic for the next bit here that we need to talk about. So initiating close combat, you kind of have to get into this circle space. You got to think about this circle, the distances around a character. So I pulled out this ruler, Mechanicus ruler that GW came out with, actually one of the nicer ones they came out with. So this has 1 inch across this space, it has 2 inches across this space, and 3 inches across this space, which will be useful because in hand-to-hand combat you need to be within 1 inch. Whoops. Buildings going everywhere. You need to be within 1 inch of each other normally to be considered to be in hand-to-hand combat or close combat. You have to be within 2 inches to be able to be fighting with some longer of the reach weapons. If you have a reach 4 weapon, you're going to be able to be within, you'll be what they say is at arm's length, and at arm's length at 3 inches you can still hit with the long weapon. Or if you have Blade Master, you can leap in and make these swipes at people and get back out or out to the at arm's length. So you can stay at arm's length. Another key thing, the things that you can do when you're in close combat, say. All right, first things first, there was a couple things that I was running over explaining, and I kind of wanted to go back really quick and jump into this part of the video to explain a little bit more, because I found I was just sort of running on ahead, and sometimes I just need to stop myself. So I'm going to go back right here. I'm going to bring up that graphic with the circles just to show you things. Now, you just don't accidentally get in hand-to-hand combat, which I've already talked about a little bit. I mean, you have to get within that 1 inch, and to do that, you charge into combat. Whether you're coming from 4 inches or 10 inches, it's still a charge. And bring up that circle, and you'll be able to see that you have to get into that certain distance. All right, and so looking at that graphic there, I have the defender at any point when they're charger, it's going to be attacker, defender. And when I'm saying attacker, that's whose turn it is. The defender will have some options like to parry or other options, dodging and parrying basically down the road. So we'll go with the attacker. So first things first, you have to initiate a charge to get into hand-to-hand combat, whether you're getting in all to the 1 inch, or if you have a longer weapon, you can, with the longer reach weapon, you can be at 3 inches away, which is known as at arm's length. And if you have a reach 4 or greater, you can be at arm's length to 3 inches away and still hit. So he could charge into here and hit her with this weapon at 3 inches away. Now, if it was somebody else that didn't have a longer reach weapon, then yes, they're going to have to be down to the 1 inch. Now, the things that you can do after you've charged, the basic actions, we can call them, the actions that you would have at your disposal, besides something totally unique, which you'll need to discuss with your GM, is to just straightforward attack, which is basic, just go in there and just swing at the person in front of you, the defender. And you could do that from either at arm's length if you have the longer weapon, or when you're up close. And all this within this circle, or the 3 inch diameter, I mean, that is sort of, you're in close combat at this point. So the other thing you can do as an attacker is to circle, and you could go 2 inches to the right or to the left. You're not supposed to close the distance. You're supposed to remain at that distance. What you're trying to do is get around to get an easier attack, because the parry won't be as easy if they have to turn and face you. So the circling, you might use a couple actions to get around to the side, and with that they could get that around them and attack and force them to turn and lose a percentage of their parry, which we'll talk about in the parry part of this. So circle, you got attack, just straight standing there and attack. circle and advance an attack. So if he was at 3 inches, he could advance 2 inches and attack to get a better strike. If he just wants to close up the room, especially if she had something that she was going to shoot at him, he just wants to get it nice and close. So right up in your face, you're going to close the 2 inches, and you're going to get right up in there, basically. The other things you could do would be to step back. So if he was up close, say the turn before she had come into him, he could step back 2 inches to be back at the at arm's length and to take a swing. So one action would be stepping back. The second action would be to hit, to swing. So you could advance that space. The reasons you might do that is, say he has a pistol. If you're at arm's length, you can shoot a pistol in hand to hand. You can't shoot it any closer. And to shoot a pistol, you're using your weapon skill instead of your ballistic skill, because it's kind of your up close and personal and fighting, and you're trying to get that aim off, and it's really depending a lot more on your weapon skill. All right, so that was the step back. So fire a pistol, I said that. So you have to be, you can't be up close to fire the pistol. You have to be out at least, it has to be out to the at arm's length, which is the 3 inch on that circle that I showed you before. And all right, so then breaking off. So the other thing that you could try to do is to break off. Now you have to have already backed out to the 3 inches, and you can spend an action trying to get away or just break off. I'm done with you, I'm moving on. And there's 2 ways to do that. Well, there's one way. You're going to make a test against your initiative to try to break off. And if the opponent doesn't care, they can say, yeah, I'm just going to let him go, in which case he wouldn't need to make the roll. But he's going to make a roll to try to break off, and he's going to add 20% to his initiative if he's going to make a run action. So he's just trying to make an opposite of a charge. It would be running away, and we'll get into that when I get a little bit further into depth into that part of the rule. So those are your main things you can do: attack, circle, advance, and attack. Attack is just keeping your distance and attacking from where you are. Advance attacking would be closing in and attacking. Step back and fire a pistol or break off, or anything else that you can think of to challenge your GM to help you figure out how it's going to happen. The other thing that we need to worry about is as always, is facing. So if you can get around the facing, that will come into parry. Their chances of parrying is a lot more reduced if she would have to turn around, or him if he was doing it to her. So I wanted to get that in there, and now we'll get back to what was going on in their battle. Is you have to initiate. You can't just end up accidentally in close combat. You kind of have to initiate it, which is to charge. As in most games, you have a sort of a charge feature. Well, you have to get within an inch of the person you're attacking. So we can say it was the Kroot's turn, and the Kroot, according to his speed, he has a speed of 5. Now, this is something that happens in close combat. We don't really need to worry about, let me dip this down just a little bit. We don't need to worry about your actions once you're in close combat. Until you're in close combat, you're going to have to nominate what you're going to do as normal in the turn sequence. So, he has 5 dice. He is going to charge the assassin, because Furious Assault, he'll get an extra attack. He won't get the plus 10% to hit, which is something you get when you charge. You get a 10% bonus on your attack when you charge. But that's how you have to initiate the combat. He has to come within an inch of the target, or in his case, since he has a reach 4 weapon, he can reach over and sort of lop into her as long as he's within that 3 inches and attack her that way. So if we move them back, to a normal distance. You know, the recruits have come, he has come over, and there she steps out, and this is something that he's going to do. He has 5 actions. Well, he is going to charge with this, which is a run, and then he's going to attack. And then we'll roll to see how many actions he got, and he got 2 successful actions, over 4. There is no risky action here, so we don't worry about this one that's sitting by itself. We'll pull the dice aside. And so a run, according to what we've done before in the rules, a run is 6 yards. So he's going to run 6 yards. Let's see where he's at here. So this is, yeah, this is a total of 6. So if we run 6 yards, he will be within the 3 inches. Let me back him up just a little bit because I think I bumped him. But he'll be within the 3 inches. The other thing to think about is I've updated the in hand-to-hand, you have a 90-degree arc. So this white on the bottom here, we'll pick her up here and I'll show you. I added the extra. That's the 90-degree side arc, which will matter, and she was 3 inches away, right? Yeah, there we go. Which will matter when she's trying to parry. If you're trying to parry and you have to turn, you're going to lose a certain amount to do that according to the chart, and I'll bring that up after we get a little bit further. So, so to initiate the combat, he had to run, which counts as a charge, and then he'll have the action for the attack. You get the free attack. So if he was a little bit further away, it wouldn't matter. But this one won't matter. We'll hold this to the side because he gets his attack for free at 3 inches with his Crute rifle. His long rifle has the spikes and is treated as, like I had said, halberd. Yes, it's the halberd. Okay, so there's a reach 4, it's a damage 1d10 plus 2, and the parry penalty of -5. Or -15, sorry. So continuing close combats, we'll worry about. This is the attack and charge. And so his options would be, at that point, to attack. So his weapon skill is 47. And I'll throw up the modifiers here for close combat. The defender is prone, no. So the attacker's on higher ground, no. So it's just a straight off attack. And so with a 74, we're going to roll that. He gets a 75. He is actually going to miss. But since that was his first attack, he gets 2 attacks because he has ferocious charge. So he will get the second attack at 59. The second attack hits. Now, this is where it gets really kind of technical, and I'll throw up that graphic again. He's making this attack, and the assassin can parry this attack. And if we look at her weapons, she only has those knives. So she's going to make a parry, and the first parry you make is your full weapon skill. The second will be half of that. The third will be a half of that. So it gets really, really hard, 3 parries down the line to make that parry. But this is the one parry she has. And she has... she can also choose to dodge. Now, this isn't a special skill of dodge. This is just, instead of parrying, she could dodge the attack. So in the dodge, since we're at arm's length, would either go 2 inches to the right or 2 inches to the left, staying at the same distance. If they were closer, the defender could actually take 2 inches back, as long as you're not going to be outside of that 3 inches. So if they were closer and when he attacked, they could take the 2 steps back. But since they are already at arm's length, it's going to be right or left. So this is going to be the weapon skill again, and hers is 82, and it's gonna be almost 100% because it's a plus 20 if you do the dodge when you're parrying without any modifiers. So with her weapon skill of 82, I just can't get the normal. I think we talked about back in their normal doing turns about the skills check. So anything higher than a 96, I believe, 96, 7, 8. Would be an automatic failure. So we can roll that. She gets a 6, easy peasy. She is going to go ahead and actually, I can't gain any distance because I would take her up the stairs for some elevation to get the bonus that way. But instead, she's going to take the 2 inches directly around, staying within the 3 inches, of course. So, and the crew is still facing that way. So there we go. We got that bit done. She did it, went ahead and did a roll. He swung and missed. She did a roll and hit. You automatically still do that movement as part of the dodge. You do the movement that happens, and if she would have failed, he would have hit her on her roll, whichever way she was going. So there's that. So that's the crew attacking the assassin in his charge, and he had the extra 4 left, which we had set aside because he had the furious assault. So we had the extra 4 left, and that gives him another attack. Now in close combat, you roll for your actions, but you don't have to nominate them. If you're locked into combat, you don't have to nominate your actions before you make your roll. You just sort of do it as each turn comes. You do each action, which is kind of nice. And it's something you have to remember. So as long as we're still you're in combat, so he would still have that, and so he could make another step forward, another attack. So one of the things you can do when you're in hand-to-hand is just step forward and attack, which he's just going to advance. Well, actually, he's okay with being at range. So he's just going to make another attack. So he's just going to stay at arm's length. He's going to turn the facer to make it harder for her to get around him. And he's still within this 3 inches. And he's just going to make another attack. And his weapon skill was 74. So he's just going to make another attack. He gets a 53. That's a hit. She is going to dodge. Again, this is the same combat. So her skill just went in half. But she's still going to dodge. Because that makes the most sense at this point. When she's... Because the chance to get a counterattack is going to be kind of iffy. With the minus 20, cutting her weapon skill in half down to 41 is still going to add the plus 20. So because of the dodge and the dodge skill, so you're going to have a 61% chance to dodge, which I think is going to be better than anything. So you're going to go ahead and do that, and gets a 62. So gets a 62, which. Wait, that's 41. She got exactly what she needed. No, it was a 20 plus, so it's a 61. Missed it by 1. So that's what I was thinking. So he does hit them. She did try to dodge. So, and she was going to go back the other way because he turned. So she's going to go back the 2 inches the other way. But he catches her. So he does do the damage. And we bring that damage up. It's 1d10. Which we'll just use this die right here. 1d10 plus 2, based on, the reach, so 1d10 plus 2, it's going to be 5, 6, 7. Her, and then where was she hit? And let's see, it was 7 points damage, so we remember that. 37, according to the chart, is going to be one of the arms. So it's going to be the nearest arm. And I'm going to say, since she was going this way, it's going to be this side. He swung and caught her in the arm, or this side over here. He swung and she moved and he still hit her in the arm. So it's going to go on to do the chart, and we are going to get her smacked for 7 points of damage. She has no armor. Her base injury value is 6 if we go back to her record sheet, and her left arm is going to take a light wound because we haven't talked about this yet, and she's taking 7 points damage. And the light wound, if we go look at that chart, which I'll have to dig up for you at this point, light wound to the arm is nothing. It's just a scratch, basically. So we move on to the next round. That was him attacking her, and that initiated the combat. We'll say that her turn had already gone, or she will be the next turn, and we'll jump into that next. All right, so I wanted to go back now again to talk about some of your options now that we've just sort of shown this charge and this vicious crude attack onto the Death Cult Assassin. And before we get into anything like doing a full round of combat back and forth without knowing enough about how injuries happen, which will be the next thing after, I think we got awareness next, and then we'll be doing the injuries. Anyhow, we'll get into that, and we'll get back to these two in a real battle once I can just sort of swing through it without having to stop and explain what I'm doing. I said that he could step back. You can fire a pistol if you're if you're at least at arm's length. Now, as far as if you're firing a pistol, the break-off. We'll get to the break-off. I wanted to get into what I was thinking about here was the parrying. And the parrying is sort of its own little section, and I wanted to explain it a little bit more. So the parrying is happening through the weapon skill, and it's divided by half every parry during that turn of the attacker's combat. So if that attacker had 5 actions, you might parry 5 times, but it's going to be cut in half every one of those, which is going to be extremely difficult to do. Now, so it's a weapon skill test. And any unmodified roll of a 0 to 5 is always a success, just like in the normal skill stuff. Anything of a 96 or higher is going to be a fail to stop the attack as far as the parry is concerned. Now, some weapons are better for parrying. A nice long well-balanced sword might be excellent for warding off enemy blows, and a heavy clumsy axe might not, be the most effective weapon to try to parry with. Reach is going to have an aspect of this, so I'll throw up the parry modifiers here. So the first thing is per point of reach difference. So if she didn't have Blade Master, well, she doesn't. If she's trying to parry this weapon, and it's at a -10 for every difference in the reach. His reach is 4. The knives reach are only 1. Without Blade Master, the knives are fairly hard to use in this combat, but Blade Master allows her to dart in and dart out and slice him up and do critical hits on top of that. So if she was just using a knife to parry that long rifle, it would be a -30 because of the 3 points difference per point of the reach difference. So it becomes really hard to parry something really big with something really small. So you get the reach modifier. Positioning, if he was attacking from her side, and it was a side attack, there'd be a -20% her chance to parry, because she has to turn to face. If she had to turn over 90 degrees, if it was a back attack, it'd be a -40. If he was positioned higher, so if he was positioned higher and coming down on, down attacking her, it'd even be, he would have, for every half yard higher, then the attacker gains a plus 10%. The defender suffers, of course. The defender who is, if the defender was prone, if she was already on the ground and trying to roll around, she would have a negative 20% chance to parry his thrusts with his long rifle, his halberd, spiky gun. Let me see, side, rear. If the character is trying to use a weapon offhand, so if they're trying to parry with their good hand got hurt and they're trying to use their offhand to parry, there's going to be an additional negative 20% to do that. Now, then we get into the dodging, which is what I had her do. The dodging sort of helps cover up for some of the stuff you can't do. You don't have the right kind of weapon to defend this big, bulky guy, so she's going to try to dodge. The character's going to try to dodge to the side, and if you're at arm's length, you're only going to be dodging to the sides. If you were closer, if you're at the 1 inch, you could dodge back the 2 inches. Otherwise, you'd have to dodge to the sides. And then that's a plus 20% chance based on the dodge value. If it was the first dodge, it'd be the full value. The second dodge, so you take that in half and then you add that 20. So it really makes it hard, as you saw in that example that we had already did. If you're pairing with 2 weapons without a skill, you have a, well, pairing with 2 weapons, you get a plus 20% chance to parry, but you're going to be counting parries per weapon. It gets a little bit more complicated. I'm not sure. All right, so you can parry. You're going to get a bonus because you have the 2 weapons, but you have to choose which weapon, which hand. You sort of have to keep track of which hand. Well, I'm parrying with a right hand, and I'm parrying with a left hand weapon, and also how good is that particular weapon if she didn't have the paired knives. If she had 2 different things, that would make a difference. And of course, it keeps going in half, the second parry for that right side versus the left side. So it just becomes bogged down a little bit more. So you have to think about that. And the dodge we talked about, but the other thing that you can do, that could end up happening, if you parry so well, you can make a counterattack. So these combats really get involved with attack, counterattack, attack. So you have to keep track of who the attacker is. You only get the one counterattack when it happens, and you might end up with another counterattack, but you only take care of the one. It's not like you get a bunch of actions, but you don't. So he swung at her, and she had missed, and she succeeded on her parry. So her parry roll minus the weapon's parry penalty is the chance that you could get the counterattack. So like with her normal skill at that 57, because of the minus 25% chance, if you got a further 25% lower than that final number, you needed the 57, which is 32. So if she got a 32, she could make an instant counterattack, in which case she could whip out with her blades and slice him some more, or try to. So the counterattack is worked the same way, and it's based on your weapon, your parry chance. And remember that every time you parry, your weapon skill goes in half. So even the counterattacks get harder and harder to do. Now that doesn't take effect if you essentially roll, if your parry chance gets lower than 6%. If it gets down to 5%, you don't get the counterattack, because that's always a success, and you just don't. You cannot make the counterattack, basically, if it gets less than 5%. That's what I'm trying to say there. You can still parry, but you're not getting a counterattack on it because your skill's so low. Let me see. Shooting into close combat. I don't think we talked about that. We talked about the shooting of the weapon. So you have to be at arm's length to shoot, and it's a weapon skill attack. And then you can shoot as a normal shooting combat goes. Of course, they can dodge, and it's a little easier because they got that 20%. So they can jump out of the way. You're nice and close, you can kind of dodge that. Let me see. And then there is the shooting in. If you're shooting into close combat, if somebody else is shooting into your close combat, you're going to just because everybody's in close quarters and things are going on and fighting. You just have to sort of divide up the how many hits into the group. It's almost like shooting an automatic shot. There's a group, and then you're gonna randomly place those shots. So you could easily, if you're shooting into close combat and your people, you're gonna easily hit one of your people. And then the only ways to end the close combat, of course, is you have to break from combat or one character is killed. And the breaking from combat, I started going into, and we'll go ahead and finish it here. Basically, you have to get out to the at arm's length. And when you're at the arm's length, then you can decide that you're going to try to break off. And to break off, you're going to... if she wanted to break away on her attack and she's already at arm's length, she's going to need to try, she's going to make a initiative test plus 20 to break off. And she has to go away from the attacker or the opponent at that point, as long as it's the only way she could go. I mean, as long as she can go anywhere. If it's the only way she can go, like this wall was behind her and she was sort of hemmed in, then she could run past that way. But only if there was the only place that she could actually go. Let me see. I think that's the break off. He could decide that he's just letting her go as well, so it's an automatic success. If she had failed the opportunity to break away, the other character, the opponent, gets a test to gets a free action. Free action to do something, so as if he had made a counterattack. So if you're trying to break away and your opponent doesn't want you to break away, the opponent can possibly, if you fail, hit you on the way out. If you fail the test, you fail to find an opportunity to break away, and your action that you tried to do that with is wasted. You don't have, you spent your time trying to get away and figured out you couldn't get away. If that test is doubled your initiative for the test, if you fail by more than that, the enemy gets a free action. That's where that counterattack comes in. He gets a free action on you for doing that. Facing, we talked about that. Critical hits, I didn't talk about that. A critical hit is a chance in close combat to strike home particularly deadly force, is known as a critical hit. This is basically double damage. If you get 1/10 the required hit number, for example, if the character had a 55% chance, any hit roll of a 6% or less inflicts a critical hit. The critical hit will do double damage and any dice modifications, so it's after all the modifications are rolled for strength or weapon and all that. So then you'll do the double on top. So you'll figure out what the damage is, then you'll double it at that point. All right, so lastly, I'm going to say that if there's multiple combatants, then everything gets really confused about who's attacker, who's defender. Really, the attacker is always the person who's going, and the defenders are going to be the other parties. The GM's really going to have to get involved and figure out exactly what's going to be happening that turn, because it's going to be a massive melee, as you can imagine in any kind of big bar brawl or something like that. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And then the last bit here, I'm going to throw up the close combat summary, and that's just going to give you the basics on initiating the close combat, and then what actions can be sort of done: the attack, the circle, the advance and attack, the step back, fire a pistol, break it off. Your facing and positioning you need to worry about. If you're going to make close combat attacks, what you need is generally your attacker has to have that 40. Your target has to be within that 45 degrees. The defender gets the 90 on defending, but the attacker's got to, your enemy's got to be within that 45. Then it's against your weapon skill. You got their modifiers. Unmodified rolls of a 0 to 5 always hit, and a 96 to 100 always miss. Then there's the list of the modifiers for the charging, the weapon reach, positioning. Then that positioning means that if you're higher or lower, or the defender be lower or higher, or the attacker higher. Yeah, you got it. Then if you're using two weapons and how that's going to work, so it's a negative 20% chance attacking with the offhand, and a negative 20 if you're using two weapons. So the offhand's going to have the negative 20 to hit with that. The enemy size, if they're small, half the size of a human, it's a negative 30% chance to hit them. They're small, dodgy. If they're 50% bigger than a human, it's a plus 30. Critical hits, of course, at 1/10 of the attack, and it's the double wounds. That's before armor's modified and all that, but it's after the damage is figured. Let me see. Parrying. Your first parry is your weapon skill, and then after that, it's halved every time. Again, the unmodified of 0 to 5 always succeeds. 96 or higher fails. You're going to deduct that weapon penalty from the percentage needed to score. The weapon reach is going to have a difference, whether it's a negative 10 or a plus 10, depending on the difference in your reach and your opponent's defending parry reach. Let me see. Positioning again. If they're prone, side and rear attacks, for every outside of the 90-degree arc, you're going to get a 20% chance. If it's a further 90, it's a negative 40 to parry. If you're parrying offhanded, it's a negative 20. You can dodge, it's a plus 20. You can go back, or you can circle when you do that. Let me see. Parrying with two weapons, it's a plus 20, but you have to count each hand separately when you're determining the weapon skill used, of course. Counterattacks, if you get 1/10 of your no, that's the critical hit, equal or less than your score after the parry minus out of it, you can get a counterattack. Ending combat, of course, is either you're going to break from combat or be defeated, or somebody's defeated. Let me see. When combat ends, the character. Oh, when the combat's over, the character who's left there, whether they're they killed the other person or knocked them out or they ran away, they have to take a pause for breath for any remaining actions that they have in their turn. So they're basically just sort of recovering. So if she was to kill him, she would spend the rest of her actions that turn just sort of just trying to recover herself, her composure. Unarmed attacks and improvised weapons. So a character holding any weapon other than or just a pistol and it is unharmed combat, he has a reach 0, and he can only parry armed attacks with a dodge. So he only can dodge away from them. You can't use the improvised weapon to parry with like a pistol. With basic weapons, which are reach 1, he can parry. It's a negative 30. So anything that's like a basic weapon, like if you're going to hold up a chair leg or a baseball bat or something like that, well, actually, a baseball bat would be a weapon. So that wouldn't be the same. Character with a reach 4 weapon may not, or more not at arm's length in the first round of combat counts as having an improvised weapon. So, okay, that's weird. A character with a weapon with reach 4, it's an unarmed attack or an improvised weapon. So if you just grabbed a pole or a piece of fence post or something like that. So there's that. I think we covered most all of it. It's all kind of muddled, I agree. But I think I got most of it out there, and that's kind of what I need to do to keep moving through this. I want to do a full combat with these two, and we'll bring them back into that, but I think we need to take care of how damage and wounds work, and I'll set up for that, and so we can just play through it just to make it see what happens as sort of an aside. Otherwise, all right. So I think we got it all in there. It's kind of messy without being able to stack right into injuries and how the wounds and stuff works. I really want to get that battle between those two to see what happens. I'll have to figure out some randomizing who's going first. We'll figure it out. But I think it'd be fun. But really, we get through the next bit of the injuries, and then it's awareness, and then everything else is sort of like special skills, psychic powers, which will be a simple go. I'm not sure if I want to read through every power. I'll name them. I don't know if I want to read through them all because that's a lot. We're just trying to learn how to play, so I'll explain psychic powers and how they work, but I don't know if I'll go into every power. The same with the special skills. I'll read through them and give you an idea of what they're doing, go through the list, maybe pick out a few, but otherwise, we'll get through injuries, awareness, special skills, psychic powers. Then we go through equipment lists and stuff like that. But then we're basically done, and then I want to jump into just some right into a battle, a thing, something going on, and I think if you watch the other intro I just posted of the CritCon, it'll sort of give you a little bit more insight. And I'll be doing the rest of that battles that took place that day, two different battles that took place that day at the same time. I'll get them both up and you'll be able to see a little bit more. But then we'll set up a table and we'll play a game. And I think that's where we'll be at. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Sorry, I'm just rambling.